Hey folks, as most of you know, back in January of 2022, our farm property out here suffered some floods. Those trees, tall trees out in the distance, that's where the Humptulips River is. And there's a road that I'm sure you'll hear the vehicles drive by, that forms a dam for the river. So we have a small 1,400 square foot farmhouse, and after a couple of years of planning and mitigation strategy discussions and stuff, this year we started to solve protecting the farmhouse from flooding in the future. And so I wanted to show you guys what solving that means. Our house is flying. This is only part of the process too. The house is supposed to go up significantly higher. But let's go on a little tour of what it takes to raise a house like this. Okay, so first thing we see here is, here's the existing foundation. So as you can tell, all around us, the elevation of the property is pretty flat, and the house was already built up a good 3-4 feet, depending on where you are in this area. The road that I mentioned is unfortunately a little bit higher than that, and so that's what's putting the house at risk. So step one in terms of raising a house is, after all the administrative stuff of design, planning, all that stuff, is to actually separate the house from the foundation. So to do that, they just crawl into the house and cut all of these stacks that you might see. So for example, here's the septic stack. You just cut it off. Similarly with power and our well water as well. The next step is, if we step back here, all of these cuts in the existing foundation, that's so that these giant steel beams could be slid under the house. And so we have 1, 2, 3 steel beams under our house. And so the house lifting contractor, he comes through, he has these beams, he or she, in this case it's a family run operation with a bunch of folks. And they start building, they slide the steel beams under, and they start building these cribbing towers. So as you can see here, these are just essentially railroad ties that start off pretty low, just to get all the beams to the same height. And then they add these jacks. So here you can see a jack. So the jack is supported by 2 pieces of wood, and the jack only is able to go up a certain amount. So roughly, let's say it's about 1 foot. And so throughout the house lift process, those jacks, so there's this one here, 1, 2, so the one in the back, the third one's behind it. I'm under my house. And then 3 more over here. So those 6 jacks are what's lifting up this house. And so what they'll do is they started off with those jacks pretty low to the ground, and they hook them up to a single gigantic manifold called a unified lifter, which is just a hydraulic pump, and they lift it at the same time. So all 6 jacks are working in tandem. The actual lift takes about a minute, and then they have to remove the move all the logs all around. And so, for example, these 2 logs here in the first lift would have been at the bottom. Then they would have lifted, and they would have to then build up the cribbing so that could support the metal beams. Then they drop the house again. Then they have to move these 2 out. So they drop the house to remove the pressure off the jacks. Then they have to take these pieces of wood out and then feed them up higher and then put the jacks back in. And so it's this process of the jacks go in at the same height around all 6 of them. Then they raise up the house. Then they restack some more wood, pull out the jacks, move the jacks higher, and repeat over and over and over again. And so right now, this house lifting company, he has 6 homes up in the air, so we're waiting on more cribbing for us to get higher. But in the interim, we're able to slip in the new beams that will support the spans that are necessary for us to turn this space that I'm standing in now into a garage space for the house lift once the house is lifted. So I wanted to show folks kind of where we are in the process. Still will be another month or 2 or 3 when we're all said and done. But it's kind of impressive that right now I'm standing underneath my own house. And this is just another view, just showing how the whole house is being lifted at once. And so part of this process, you see here the old beams that supported the house. And what they're doing is we need to put in larger beams that are able to span the distance under the floor joists. Because as the house was built, because we weren't planning on using, or because the house, this crawl space wasn't used, all of these pedestals supported essentially 4x4 posts that were holding up these beams here. What we want to do though is be able to park some vehicles under the house once it's lifted. And so we can't have as many support beams in the center. And so they took out the old structural beams that support all these floor joists, which right now, the job of those is being held by these steel beams. And so they're going to slide in brand new beams, glulam beams that will go across the whole floor so that we could instead have one set of posts to hold up the house. And then the rest of the house is supported by the foundation walls on either side. And that'll give us a nice clear opening under the house. That's pretty cool. I just am amazed at how much space there is under this house. So I will try to take some more videos to show folks as we move along. I also have a couple time-lapse cameras. So that post, I put in a temporary post. There's a camera at the top there that's taking a time-lapse of this process. So I hope to showcase that once we're all done.